AITA for not including my niece in my daughter's birthday since her parents can't afford it. My 31F daughter, 8F, and my niece, 8F, are born 10 days apart. Due to this, ever since they were little, my Sil, 29F, has always pushed for them to have a shared birthday party. When the girls were younger, 1 to 4, we used to do shared birthday parties. But my husband and I realized that we were always the ones to foot the bill for everything: food, decorations, location, etc. The girls also were complete opposites. My daughter has always been more of a tomboy, while my niece is super girly. When my husband and I told Sil and my brother Fatway won't be doing the shared birthdays anymore, they were really upset and it started a huge fight. They said they can't afford to throw a nice birthday for my niece, but we can, so it makes sense that we pay for it since we're family. Yeah, not gonna fly with my husband and I, so we're stuck by what we said, and ever since the girls shave had separate birthdays. My daughter and my husband love watching Formula 1 together, and she wanted to have a Formula 1 the med birthday this year. The weekend before the birthday we had a family dinner at my parents' house. Sil, my brother and niece were present. My parents were asking the girls if they were excited for their upcoming birthdays, and if they were having parties this year. My daughter told my parents she is having a Formula 1 themed party this year. Sil answered for my niece and said they're not going to have a party for her because things were tight. The conversation was left there. Fast forward to this past weekend, daughter's B-day was on Saturday. We had the party and it was going great. The whole family was invited as usual, and everyone was having a great time until the cake. I'm in the kitchen with my mom, Mill, Sil, and a few other family friends talking. I pull the cake out to get it ready to bring out for everyone. Sil takes a look at the cake and looks confused. Sil, is this the girl's birthday cake? Me, what do you mean, the girl's? The cake is for daughter's name. Sil, well, I thought since I mentioned that thing is airtight this year, that you'd include * niece's name * in the birthday. Me, I understand your situation, but how come you never once mentioned this to me? Sil, well, I thought it would be common sense. Now me daughter isn't going to have any kind of celebration for her birthday this year because you and your husband are so selfish. She then stormed out of the kitchen, made a huge scene at the party outside, yelling to her husband and my niece that it's time to go, and left. Since then, she's been messaging me and my husband non-stop, trying to make us feel guilty that my niece isn't going to have a birthday party, and calling us all kinds of names. I feel bad that my niece isn't going to get a birthday party. AITA for not including her, even though they can't afford it. AITA for wanting my wife to make my dinner. Me, M25, and my wife of over a year, F26, together for over 4, have always had a good relationship with each other. It has felt very love-filled. We recently got into an apartment, 1 bedroom, like 700 square feet, so not huge. Once this happened, I feel like things may have shifted. I work very long hours throughout the week, with sometimes only 1 or maybe 0 days off in the week, average of 75 to 80 hours a week. I bring home a majority of the money. My paychecks are almost over 80% our whole income. Not that it affects how I think of her and/or relationship. She is able to provide things like fun groceries, snacks, sweets, and when we go out she can pay for things like the tip or drinks, and I really appreciate that and tell her thank you when she can. Swing it. She also does most of the chores in the small apt. Other than that, I'm the person paying for our life. Groceries, toiletries, outings, clothes, makeup, and not to mention rent and all other real bills. She works in a very different field and works 3, sometimes if her job requires, 4 days a week. Shay's working toward her career and I'm proud of her for this. Most days she'll work an average of 6, maybe 7 hours on her work days. This is where the problem has started. A lot of my work nights are late, 12 or 1 a.m. when I get home. I'll pack snacks but never get to eat. So a lot of days I come home hungry for an actual meal. Recently those nights have been more frequent and I just don't want to have to cook something for myself after a 13-hour day after doing the same all week. I just want to be able to eat with the minimal amount of work when I get home. The other night I came home around 1:30 a.m. and found my wife passed out on the couch with an empty personal pizza from Little Caesars. I got excited thinking that I had a cold one in the fridge waiting for me. Wrong. Annoyed but not upset, I microwave some Chef Boyardee, scarf it down and call it a night. The next day I have the same kind of night. Around 1:30 I get home. There she is passed out, now with a bowl of macaroni and weenies, one of my favorites, and again, nothing in the fridge for me. Not understanding why she couldn't just make enough for the both of us and put my bowl in the fridge. Wake her up to ask. She gets a little snappy if someone wakes her up, but this time she was ist, saying that she is not my maid and I'm being lazy trying to make her cook for me. I tell her I'm just hungry after a long day, and it upset me seeing she cooked for herself and didn't think about me at all. I said she was being inconsiderate, and that really set her off. Saying if I want a slave then. She's nodded. I told her I don't want a slave, I want a wife who seems to care about me. She looked at me with a shocked face and stormed out. Her mother texted saying she showed up at their house bawling and how I should be more considerate to her feelings. I haven't even responded because I just feel hurt and not cared for. I just want a dinner. AITA? Edit. I really should have mentioned this is a conversation we have had before, and I feel ignored since she barely acknowledges when I've brought ITUP. These last 2 times are after multiple conversations. Also definitely didn't want to seem like she shouldn't be sleeping at 1. Passed out is just terminology I use. If I'm dead asleep at 4 a.m. I'm passed out. I appreciate the other things she does for me like cleaning, but the other 8 hours of free time in her day I wanted to be thought of, since I would do the same for her, no questions. AITA for not re-inviting my sister and her family to my wedding after we changed it. My fiancé and I plan to have a large wedding in July at a venue in the country. I guess that was too out of the way for most people because only 14 people RSVP'd that they were coming. We had already set aside money for our wedding, and since there was no longer going to be a lot of people coming, we decided to splurge. So, we asked everyone who RSVP'd that they were coming if they could take a few extra days off for a longer trip to Hawaii, all expenses paid by us. Everyone said yes, so we started booking tickets and suites at this nice resort. We also planned some fun things to do while we're there. Everyone is very excited for the trip. Now my sister, who RSVP'd that she and her family weren't coming, is upset that I didn't re-invite her when we changed plans. She thinks that since it's basically a different trip they should have been told. Originally she said she couldn't come to our wedding because that time of the year is very difficult for her and her husband because the summer is the busiest time for their business. They have a landscaping business. Also she said traveling that far with all her kids would be difficult because of the long car ride. It would have been around a 3-hour drive from where she lives. So it doesn't make any sense to me for her to say she can go on a longer trip even farther away. The plane trip is almost 9 hours long. Alsace says it's unfair because our brother and his family gets to go while hers doesn't. That's making her kids feel left out because their cousins are going, and my sister says it's like playing favorites. My sister and her family would be 5 more people, so even if we wanted to re-invite them they would cause us to go way over budget. The only other option would be to drastically downgrade the trip we already promised everyone. It just seems totally unfair to everyone else, but my sister also thinks I'm being unfair and says we pulled a reverse bait and switch and #X200B, edit. Oh boy. Sorry, but I'm definitely not going to be re-adding all these comments. AITA for wanting to limit my BIL's access to my unborn daughter because of his dating choices. Dummy account because the relevant parties are on Reddit. I, 31F, am pregnant with a girl. My husband, 33, has a younger brother, 31, who's he's very close to. However, I recently told my husband that I don't feel comfortable with the idea of his brother spending much time with my daughter once she's born. It's not because of my Bill himself. We're not close, but he's fine. The issue is his life choices. He's not married, has no intention of getting married or having kids, and dates only for sexual purpose. He dates multiple women, and the only thing has in common with them is that, like him, they are extremely good looking. He's highly intelligent, yet he has no interest in meaningful relationships. I spoke to him about his choices a few years ago, and after accusing me of being moralistic, he claims that he always uses protection and he never leads the women on. Which I call BS on, as I can't imagine any woman with an increasing ticking biological clock would willingly be in a relationship which she knows doesn't have a future. Not to mention, what woman would want to be with someone who may not even remember your name in a year's time? I mentioned this to my husband, however he called me an and said that it was ridiculous to limit her daughter's access with her uncle just because I don't agree with his legal dating choices. AITA. Edit. I probably should have clarified that he generally goes onto apps like Tinder, which Makish at worst, as the women he dates tend to be of a certain type. AITA for asking for more money for my car? So, I, 28M, offered to sell my RAV4 that has 100,000 miles on it in January to my brother Andy's wife. They have a baby and a beat-up Honda Civic as well as a Scion with way too many miles on it. They shared they'd be car hunting this year. I offered to sell it to them for what Carvana offered, which was $14,500, and they agreed to it right away. The problem was that my wife and I still hadn't picked out our replacement car, so they'd check in every week or so, but we weren't ready. In the end, we decided to hold on to the car until our trip to Disney this past week. I checked Carvana again and they offered me more, this time $16,500. I texted my brother telling Hiva could have it, but he would need to match Carvana's new offer. He responded saying that they're not haggling and they've been putting off buying a car for months because they thought we had an agreement and were just waiting on us. They called me and for stringing them along for 3 months and then asking for $2,000 more. I'm just trying to do what is right by my 2 kids and one on the way. AITA?